As we start to take a look at the differences between divided surfaces and curtain systems, divided surfaces are created inside the mass model, and when you're in the Revit file under massing and site, you can place a curtain system. Now in this example, when you're using a curved shape like this Gherkin building, and you create the model by using some of those tools we've already covered in creating here and copying levels and creating these circles here that are profiles, and then selecting those circles and using create form to create this shape. Once you have the shape and you load it into the Revit file, you can go to the Massing and Site tab and place the curtain system. The difference is that when you select the curtain system in the Properties panel, you can change the spacing of those panels, but because of its curved shape, you'll see that you won't have the angle that you can turn it so that it looks like this Gherkin building. If it was a plain sheet of surface that didn't have a lot of curves, or even if it was at an angle, but it wasn't curved, when I select this curtain system, the difference is that I have here an angle that I can change. So I changed it to a 45-degree angle because now it's possible to rotate the curtain system with even mullions on the system when it's not as curved. If you have a curved building like this or something that you might change later, then you would go to the mass model and create a new family using the curtain panel pattern base. When you open that file, you'll see that there's really nothing in place yet. You can select here the pattern itself and change it to whichever one you're using. And then this is the panel. So you can use sweep to create the mullion and use extrusion to create the glazing and whatever else, whatever other configuration you'd like for your individual panel, which will then be brought into the mass and then brought into the Revit file. So in this case, we had different curtain panels based on the different colored glass. So I created the first one with the geometry and then saved it as the second one and the third one so that I had the same mullion and the same glazing, but just different material for each one. And then I loaded all three of these into the mass file. Using the tab key, I could select that individual curtain panel and change it to the family that I loaded, family 1, 2, and 3. If I just rest my pointer over each one of these, you'll see that family 1 is the light colored one, and family 2 is the medium colored glazing, and family 3 is then going to be the dark colored one. I think the best advantage of using these adaptive points within these panels is that when the shape changes, they adapt themselves to the new form. So the panels will bend as the mass model changes. So in looking at the different patterns and trying to come up with something that's close to the Gherkin building, there's a choice here between a couple of different patterns. One is the triangle bent, and the other one is this panel called rhomboid. I decided to use rhomboid because it was a little more rectangular, but either one would work. And you can try different panel patterns by just selecting the divided surface and changing it here in this drop down. So I'm inside the mask. I've already copied these levels. I've selected by holding my control key down the circles that I drew on each one of these levels. I could use the viewer to see the plan of those circles to make sure that they're all lined up. And then once I've selected each one of those circles, I used create form to create the mask. And then I selected the mask and added this divided surface called rhomboid. Now I'm going to go to start a brand new family file, and it's going to be curtain panel pattern base. Another one that's the same as the generic model pattern based. Same thing. So we'll go up here and pick curtain panel pattern base. Inside this file, I'm going to click on this pattern and change it to what I'm using, the rhomboid here. And now I want to create my mullion. I can add this small point element. So you click on point element, click here anywhere along this line, and at first it doesn't show, so you have to go out of the command to see the little dot. So you click on this modify button or you press escape a few times, and now you can see this kind of element point that I put here. When you click on it, it becomes like the profile so that you can create your mullion and sweep it along these 4 reference planes. So I want to set that work plane current. I can click set and then click show, because it will show you when you pick show that that is the surface that you have here as active. And I think a good way to draw on that plane is to pick the viewer. Inside the viewer, you're actually looking at the surface straight on and perpendicular to the reference planes that we're going to sweep. So now I can create a rectangle to represent my mullion. Although I think the Gherkin, in looking at more details, looks triangular, but we're going to go ahead and create this this one here, and I'll make it 8 inches. So by selecting the different sides, I can change here the dimensions to 8 inches square. One way to make sure that it's on the center of this reference line is to just draw 2 more lines that are from the midpoints, and then use the move tool to move this from the middle here to the middle point here. And now you know that it's on the intersection of that reference line that we're going to use to sweep those objects. And we don't need these extra lines, so I'm going to select them by holding my left mouse button down and dragging it across here to delete that, and delete this one. And you can see as I'm drawing it, you can see that this profile is being created in the model as I'm drawing it in the viewer. You can use a different dimension if you'd like. I just selected it, and then I selected a side again to see that it's 8 inches. So I can close out of the viewer now and use the concept sweep. Here in creating your mass models, you don't have the tool called sweep like you do when you are creating a component in the Revit file. But if you select here this profile and hold your control key down and select reference planes, you can pick create form, solid form, and it will sweep along those reference planes and use that 8x8 profile to create that mass. Now let's take a look at creating the glass. We'll need to set this work plane here current, so you can select here select this pattern and then pick set. And it should set that as being the work surface. You can also tab with your pointer rested on this small adaptive point until it tabs to that flat surface. Click it and then pick set. And it'll show you that it's set it right there on that surface. Either way, we are going to use here model lines to create a line from corner to corner so that we can use reference lines to create these triangular patterns. I already experimented with creating a rectangular pattern for the glass, and it didn't work well because each one of these boxes becomes the full panel. So we'll create one and then take a look. So I'm going to click on model and pick line, and then at the very bottom corner, I'm not even going to go halfway here. I'm going to go at the very bottom corner and click, and then hold my shift key and the wheel of my mouse to orbit around to the other corner and click at that bottom corner right there. And then I'll draw another one, so escape out of that once from the other corner to corner. So I'm going to go from here over to the other corner. And it won't look like you've drawn the line until you ended it, but there are the two lines that I just drew. And now I'll go to reference and draw a line. I've got here checked the 3D snapping and the chain. And I'm going to draw a reference line that will go from corner to corner here, and then back to this midpoint and back to this corner. Now I can select here this chain of reference lines and hold my control key down to grab this last one, pick create form, solid form. I'm going to pick this solid shape here and then use this blue arrow to bring it back up where I need it. I'll change my number to 1 inch, and now I have a 1-inch panel that's inside this frame. Now I can test it to see if it works by saving the file and loading it into your project. You can override the existing conditions of what's there, if anything is there. In my case, I was making sure, going through each one of those steps. And now you'll see that just that one panel that you created is there. We're ready to create the other 3 panels. It's kind of a check. You can hold your control key and your tab key to go back and create the other triangular patterns. See, I'll show one more. I'll pick up my reference lines and make sure that you're clicking at the bottom here of this panel. So it's going to be right here in this corner. I'll go to this corner here, and now I can orbit around to the other corners right here and now I can select these by holding my control key down and use create form to create that solid. Use this blue arrow to bring it back up above our work plane and change this to 1 inch. So continue to do that for the other 2. And then load it into the Revit file so that you can test it and see that it worked. Now you have here a mullion with a solid panel. Now these panels still need to be saved. So in this panel here, we're going to start to place glass and create 3 different files. One will be for the glass light and glass medium and glass dark, so that you can have 3 different files. We can use the tab key to select one of these panels, and then under material, pick here by category and start to establish your material inside this family. We can right click and duplicate this default material and maybe call this glass light. And so with glass light, because we'll do light, medium, and dark, or whatever you'd like to use, you have the graphics tab and you have the appearance tab. So the graphics tab, I can change it to be kind of a lighter blue. If you click on blue here, you can use this kind of bar at the right hand side to get that light color that you might want for that type of blue, whatever you'd like to use for light. But the appearance tab, if you wanted to render this, we'll have to go to the appearance tab and click down here at in this little icon that opens and closes the asset browser, this box. And we can change, if you'd like, your view to thumbnails here in this drop down. Go to the appearance library and then pick glass. There are several different glass colors to use here, so you can decide for your appearance for your rendering or your realistic view on one of these lighter colored glasses. They have light colored and dark colored. And now that becomes the appearance for your realistic view or your rendering. You see the color, it's a little bit less blue, so you might want to use something a little different, whatever you'd like. And so I close out of this and I'll pick OK. I can actually create them all right here because I'm going to do a save as in this one. So I think that's what I'll do. I'll right click and duplicate this one and call it glass medium. And then for the medium, I'll go back to the graphics tab and select something else that's a little bit darker. I'm going quickly so you can spend a little more time with this if you'd like. And for the appearance tab, you can go back to the assets and maybe pick something that might be a little bit darker blue, possibly. There you go. And then the same thing for the last one. We can right click and pick duplicate and change this one to glass dark and do the same thing. Go to the graphics tab and pick up a darker color if you'd like here. And then in the appearance tab, pick up maybe these darker blue colors. You can take a look at what they are because some of them are reflective. So you have to be careful that if you have a reflective surface, it's not really going to be dark blue. And you can always change the reflectivity here in your material. So now if I change my view to shaded, I can see that I picked up the darker color here. So I'd like to change that. I'm going to select it and change my glass color to glass light. Glass light. And now when you look at it, it's a little bit lighter. So what I need to do is to do that for each one of these panels. Select it and change it to this light. So I'm selecting each one of these panels and using here in the properties panel the material glass light. And if you'd like to change the mullion, you can also. So here I can select the mass. By using my tab key, I can select the mass of the mullion and change the material. You may want to right-click on the default, duplicate it, and change this to mullion white, something like that. And then whatever color you'd like to use for the mullion, I'll change this to white, and in the appearance the same way. You can go pick up one of these metals. They'll probably have a nice metal in here that's glazed you can use. You can always come back and change it later if you decided that it wasn't the right look for you. I'm going to go ahead and change that and pick OK. So now it's white and we have this light blue. Save it as glass light or something that you can identify with, and then you can save it and save it as a different name, like glass medium. But now you're inside the glass medium. You want to select these panels by using your tab key and changing here to the glass that you set up as being medium. See, so now you have a little bit darker panel for your glass medium. And then save that and do another save as to create another family, and maybe this one is called glass dark. So now you go back into this glass dark one and change the glass to glass dark. Okay, so now that you have all three of your panels, you've created your mullions, you've created your glass, the three different colors that are on this Gherkin building, you can start to load them into your project. So once you've loaded your glass light, glass medium, and glass dark, you're ready to select the panel using your tab key and drop this list down here. You'll see under the pattern your loaded glass light, dark, and medium. I did another test run here, so you would just be selecting your appropriate one and seeing that it does change. It does change color. Or you can use one of my favorite tools. It's this match type properties, where you can match properties. And the idea is that you select that icon, and then just like it is in AutoCAD and other programs, you can tab to select one of the panels that you want as your source. So my source is going to be this darker color one. And then I can tab to select this one as my destination, or the one that's going to match that one. So they can continue to match as you select just the panel. So you can change the material if you'd like by editing that mass model and bringing it back into the file. So you can either select it and pick Edit Family, or you can use Control Tab since you have it open. I'll go back to this one, and you can select this panel and change the material here under Glass Dark to something different. Maybe you like to use a different color for that, a different appearance, maybe for your rendering. So once you've loaded it and placed it, if you want to change the color, you can still change the color here in the material browser. You can load it back into the file, and you'll see that it updates when you pick override the existing version and its parameters. We didn't add any parameters, but you can go ahead and click that. Okay, so the concept is that you create 3 family files that have different material, and then you load them into this mass and select the panel that you want to change and use this drop down to change it to the panel color that you'd like. Or you can use this match properties. Once you have it saved, you can load it into a project. Once you load it into the project, then you have that option of changing the background and setting it up and adding to it in a regular project, because this is still the mass file that we're working with in here. So we want to be able to load it into a project. Okay, so those are the steps, a little different than using the curtain systems. We have to create the geometry and set the material to that geometry. But in the end, if we decided to change this curve shape, the mass adaptive points would follow that shape. So, okay, this is definitely an advanced project, and good luck to you. Contact me if you have any questions or if you need help.